Okay, breaking 3 hours for the marathon sounds complicated, right? Hours of running, endless workouts, confusing training plans. But what if I told you there's a simpler way? No fluff, no gimmicks, just a clear, straightforward strategy that works. I'm Grantham, an elite ultra runner and a coach. I've taken my own marathon time from 4 hours 25 to 2 hours and 21 minutes. And I've helped runners just like you smash through the 3 hour barrier. Today, I'm going to share the exact framework that simplifies the process, cuts out all the noise, and helps you focus on what really matters. If you're serious about breaking 3 hours for the marathon, subscribe for more tips. And if you want personalized coaching to hit your marathon or your distance running goals, check out the link in the description to book a free performance strategy call with me. Now, before we get on to the specific sessions, what I often hear from marathon runners that are either trying to break 3 hours for the marathon or run faster or slower is that they're running long and they're doing that long, slow distance. Sometimes they're doing a speed session and they're running faster. Essentially, what we need to be doing is running faster than marathon pace, and slower than marathon pace in order to build all areas of your marathon game. One part of a runner's game that I often see neglected is running for sustained periods at goal race pace. So running for sustained periods at marathon pace. These 6 key sessions are gonna fix that for you, are gonna work you forward in a very strategic way in order for you to show up on marathon start line feeling confident that you can execute your sub 3 hour marathon. Now the pace that we need to hit for a 3 hour marathon is 4 minutes and 15 seconds per kilometer or 6 minutes and 52 seconds per mile. But these sessions can be applied to whatever pace that you're trying to run for your goal marathon. Session 1 times 5 kilometers at marathon pace, 60 seconds rest in between, and then 5 times 500 meters at 10 kilometers pace. So what that would look like for me if I'm aiming for a sub 3 marathon is 1 times 5 kilometers in 21 minutes and 15 seconds. So 4 minutes, 15 seconds per kilometer. And then those 5 times 500 meters, I'll be doing them in 10K pace. I'd want to run a little bit quicker than 4 minutes per kilometer pace. What we're essentially doing there is working at building our ability to work specifically at the marathon pace that we're trying to achieve in the marathon. And then by doing those 5 times 500 meters afterwards at 10K pace, it's doing 2 things for you. It's getting you to change up in gears and work fast at that 10K pace, which is a bit more uncomfortable, but they're only short reps of 500 meters. It's also consciously or subconsciously making that marathon pace feel easier. Session number 2 times 5 kilometers at marathon pace, and then 5 times 500 meters at 10K pace. And again, 60 seconds in between the 5 kilometer reps, and then 60 seconds in between, again, the 5 kilometer rep and the 500 meter reps, and in between the 500 meter reps. So only ever 60 seconds rest in between, which helps keep your heart rate elevated and helps us go into those 500 meter reps, change up in gear, work harder at 10K pace at 40 minutes per 10K pace at 4 minutes per kilometer. Now what that's doing is giving you double the amount of distance at 10 kilometers now at specific marathon pace or specific marathon goal pace, and then changing up in gears and going even quicker, which again is making marathon pace feel more comfortable. Session number 3 times 5 kilometers with 60 seconds rest in between, then 60 seconds rest, and then straight on to 5 times 500 meters at 10K pace. So again, we're building that volume slowly at working specifically at a goal marathon pace. If that needs to take you a few weeks to progress onto that, and that might look like, okay, we're doing 1 times 5 kilometers, then we're doing 2 times 5 kilometers, and then it's a bit of a stretch for you to do 3. So you do 2 times 5 kilometers, and then 2 times 5 kilometers plus 2 times 2.5 kilometers in order to get to that 15 kilometers worth of volume at marathon pace, but we're still adding those 500 meter reps at 10K pace on the end. Session number 4, and this is my favorite session. It's my favorite marathon session, and once I've completed this session, Even if it's not at exactly marathon pace, if it's in a hot country like I'm still in Chiang Mai, or if I'm in Granada, even if I do this 10% slower than marathon pace, I know that I'm in great shape to go to London Marathon or Berlin Marathon and run a personal best. And that is 4 times 5 kilometers at marathon pace, 20 kilometers worth of volume at marathon pace, 60 seconds in between each one of those 5 kilometer reps. And then again, 60 seconds rest and straight onto those 500 meter reps at 10 kilometer pace. So at 4 minutes per kilometer or a little bit faster by this point. Again, if I execute that session, it's a big session, 20 kilometers worth of volume at marathon pace, plus those extra 2.5 kilometers at 10K pace. If I can do that, I'm so confident that I'm going to get to marathon, I'm going to be in PB shape. And if you think about it, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to arrive on start line feeling confident that we can go out at the pace that we want to achieve for the entire race, pace it well, pace it evenly, finish strong, dig in when it gets tough, and really execute what we've been training for. That's all we're trying to do. Session 5. 5 times 5 kilometers at marathon pace, and then straight on to 5 times 500 meters at 10 kilometers pace. Very, very simply, 25 kilometers at marathon pace and 2.5 kilometers at 10K pace. Now, what we should be seeing at this point, and hopefully earlier as well, is you're gonna see your heart rate climb in those 5 kilometer reps, and then you'll see it flatten off. And then you'll see your recovery very strong, and the stronger that recovery, the bigger indicator that you're getting fit towards your marathon. It's a great indication of fitness. And then you're climbing again into that second rep. If you start to see the heart rate getting out of control, so it's gradually trending up, and I'll try to give you on screen an example of this, then it's a good time to have 2 or 3 weeks at maybe 4 times 5 kilometers and watch your body be able to handle that well, be able to be strong throughout those intervals, and so that we're seeing a heart rate graph that is much more flat at the peaks, and you're much more in control of the entire session, and it indicates that you could do another rep if pushed, which is exactly what we're trying to do in the 5 times 5 kilometers. Session number 6. 6 times 5 kilometers at marathon pace, and then straight on to 5 times 500 meters at 10K pace. Just 60 seconds rest in between the 5 kilometers and the 500 meters and the 5 kilometer reps as well. Now that's a big session, 30 kilometers worth of volume at marathon pace, and although it's broken up with those 60 seconds rest in between, which you will need, you've still got that 2.5 kilometers afterwards, 5 times 500 meters at 10K pace. So initially, if you want to drop those faster reps, you can do, but if you then to work them in later, again, those are there to make marathon pace seem easier and to develop that faster pace. Now remember, one of the biggest things that lets marathon runners down at all levels is a lack of confidence in their training, in the process that they've followed. If you can do 4 times 5 kilometers with just 60 seconds rest in between at your target time, I am confident in myself that I can then execute my goal time on marathon day. But it's about staying strong mentally. You've built your physical self, you've built your physiological self. You know you can handle this race, but it's about staying mentally in those final 2 to 3 weeks, tapering off, freshening up the legs, and then starting on pace, digging in when it gets hard, and then finishing strong so that you can ideally pinch a couple of minutes and run a 2:57 or a 2:58. Once you've executed that marathon, the floodgates are open and it's completely up to you because you've hit that milestone, and then you can go for what you're really capable of. Now, the running brain is a great brain, but it's often a strange brain. And so what a lot of you will be thinking, and what the typical thinking is from a runner, is if I can do 4 times 5 kilometers or even 6 times 5 kilometers at marathon goal time, but I need 60 seconds rest in between, and definitely on rep 3, 4, 5, and 6, how am I going to execute that for the entire 42 kilometers or for the entire 26 miles? That is completely normal thinking, but don't underestimate the power of that taper, of freshening up your legs. And remember that when you're doing those sessions, you're on those accumulated fatigued legs that are doing the rest of the training. And so that is only part of the picture. It's a big part of the picture, but you've got to be doing the recovery runs, the easy runs, the faster running, the interval session, together with those tempo efforts, those race-specific efforts, in order to execute on race day. Good luck. I hope you got something from that. And if you did, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It really helps out the channel, and I'm working on building the best running channel on the internet.